Your brain is a complex organ that tells the rest of your body what to do. Each part of it is responsible for different aspects of your body's functions. The brainstem connects the brain to the spinal cord and is responsible for basic functions such as breathing and controlling the heart and digestion. The parts of the brain itself include the cerebellum, which controls the balance and movement, the hypothalamus, which controls homeostasis, and the thalamus, which makes sure electrical signals go to the right part of the brain, and the cerebrum, which is in charge of higher-level thinking. The cerebrum is divided into two hemispheres, which are held together and communicate via the corpus callosum. Zoom in, and we can see the neurons that make up each section. Neurons allow messages to travel faster, further, and more precisely than those carried by hormones through the bloodstream. Each neuron has dendrites, which receive electrical messages called neurotransmitters. This message travels through the cell body, which contains the nucleus, mitochondria, and other organelles. The signal then travels down the axon and across the synapse to another neuron until it eventually reaches the target cell, which interprets the neurotransmitter and reacts to it. In the brain and spinal cord, oligodendrocytes create a myelin sheath which insulate the axon and allow the neurotransmitters to travel faster. The neuron is also surrounded by microglial cells which support and protect it from bacteria and other substances, as well as by astrocytes which provide it with nutrition from the bloodstream. The way that neurotransmitters travel through the neuron is a process called action potential. Understanding action potential can be a little confusing, but you can think of it like a salty banana. See, the axon is filled with potassium, just like a banana, and it also contains chlorine and amino acids. Outside of the axon, it is surrounded by sodium, which is in salt, thus the term salty banana. Since action potential is the movement of an electrical signal, we will also measure the change in net charge inside of the axon as these particles move around. Since the potassium and sodium are positively charged and the chlorine and amino acids are negatively charged, the initial resting charge of the inside of the axon is about negative 15 millivolts. When the electrical signal enters the axon, it triggers the opening of the sodium channels, allowing the positively charged sodium ions to enter the axon and the net charge to increase to about 35 millivolts. The sodium channels then close, and the potassium channels open, allowing potassium ions to leave the axon. Unfortunately, the charge then drops down to negative 85 millivolts, which is lower than it needs to be for resting potential, and the potassium and sodium are both on the wrong side of the membrane. So, to get things back to normal, the neuron uses ATP to activate sodium-potassium pumps, which send 2 potassium ions back into the axon for every 3 sodium ions it sends out. Once the net charge gets back to negative 55 millivolts, the pumps stop working, and the axon is ready to send its next signal.